Hello there. Thank you for joining me. My name is Daniel Jones, and I'm going to be your instructor for this course today. You're going to be able to use this course to satisfy your educational requirements and then take your notary exam if you'd like to become a notary in California. So let's go ahead and get started.
Chapter 1. Obtaining and Managing a Notary Commission. We're going to open up our discussion by exploring the requirements a person needs to meet in order to become a California notary public. But first of all, I ought to mention that the notary receives their appointment by the California Secretary of State. And of course, it's the Secretary of State who ultimately determines whether or not new notary appointments are even required in the state. So let's talk about the criteria that needs to be met by someone who wants to become a notary public in California. To become a notary in California, a person must first be a California resident. You have to be 18 years of age. The person must complete a notary education course. Of course, that person must also pass a written, proctored, closed book examination which covers the California notary law. And the person also must pass a criminal background check. Let's look at each of these a little more closely. First of all, unless the person is going to be specifically appointed to a military post, the person needs to be a California resident at the time of appointment. Now, residency is sometimes a little difficult to determine as, the law doesn't require an applicant to have lived in California for any particular period of time to establish the residency. When you complete your notary application, you'll find an area for you to list your address of residence. The address must, of course, be in California. The point is that you can't reside in New York, for example, or Arizona and be a California notary public. So you must have a place of residence in California. Now, while there's no requirement to be a United States citizen, the notary applicant, of course, must have legal residency, and that applicant is going to need to have an alien registration card or something similar with evidence of legal residency at the time that they submit the application. We usually submit the notary application at the time of testing, and a new application has to be submitted for each notary term. Now, things are a little different if you're going to be assigned to a military or naval reservation. This type of notary must be a United States citizen. Okay, next, the applicant must be at least 18 years old at the time of appointment. That's straightforward enough, except that someone who's wanting to take the class before they turn 18 really should wait until they turn 18 before taking the notary exam. It's because as a part of the examination process, they're going to need to submit the signed and dated notary application. Now, if someone's not yet 18 years old when they submit the application, they might risk having that application returned to them by the Secretary of State for resubmission after turning 18. Okay, obviously you already know that a notary applicant is going to be required to complete a notary course which has been approved by the Secretary of State. There are 6-hour courses and 3-hour courses. All first-time California notary applicants or applicants whose commissions have expired must complete the 6-hour course. However, if you're the notary applicant and your commission is still current, you can choose to take either the full 6-hour course or a 3-hour refresher course. Everyone who completes either the 3-hour course or the 6-hour course is going to be given a proof of completion at the end of that course, and that needs to be submitted along with that notary application. It's important for me to restate here that any notary whose commission has either expired or will expire before taking and passing the exam is going to have to complete the 6-hour course. The 3-hour course is only valid for the notary if they take the class and pass the examination before their current commission expires. The notary course proof of completion is going to be valid for a period of 2 years, but the exam results are only valid for 1 year. Let me reiterate this because it's just so important. If your current commission has expired or it will expire before you submit a new application for recommission, then you must take the 6-hour course because your eligibility to take the 3-hour refresher course will have lapsed. If you take the 3-hour course and you're not eligible for that course, your application is going to be sent back to you along with that proof of completion. And then you'll be required to take the full 6-hour course. So at that point, you'll then need to submit the proof of completion for the 6-hour class. Some notaries choose to take the full 6-hour class in the middle of their current commission. It's a very good way to stay abreast of new laws or just as a refresher. So, if you've taken a 6-hour class within 2 years of applying for your reappointment, since the notary course is valid for 2 years, you'll have already satisfied the 3-hour refresher course. Now, don't forget to keep that proof of completion so you can have it to submit to the California Secretary of State when it does come time to renew your commission. Remember, the class is good for 2 years, so you can take your notary course up to 2 years in advance of your commission expiration date. But remember, the exam is only valid for 1 year. So you'll need to wait until at least 1 year before your current commission expires to take your notary exam. Okay, so if you're recommissioning as a California notary public, you've already taken a notary exam in the past and you already know that each commissioning term requires another exam. Now, if this is your first commission, you need to know that once you've completed the notary course, whether it's in a live classroom setting or an online course or downloadable home study course, you'll need to take the exam and pass it with a score of 70% or greater before your application will be considered by the Secretary of State. If you take the exam and don't pass, your application is going to be returned to you along with a notification that you'll need to retake the exam. In the event that you don't pass the exam, you'll need to wait at least until the next calendar month. Now, this is because the test will be a different version every calendar month. Now, there are 30 questions on the exam and they're multiple choice, and you'll be given a total of 50 minutes to complete those 30 questions on the exam. The exam, of course, is closed book and must be taken in a testing location which is proctored by the Cooperative Personnel Services. You'll also need to bring a number 2 pencil and a valid photo identification to the testing site. You'll need to have either a current driver's license or a current passport. If your driver's license is expired or you've had a name change and the license doesn't yet reflect that name change, you'll need a valid passport with the correct name. By the way, a temporary license printed on paper that doesn't include your photo is not going to be accepted. Remember, if you're a legal resident of the United States, you're going to need to include your alien registration number on your notary application. We'll be providing some more information about the exam towards the end of this course. Okay, every notary is going to need to submit fingerprints so that a criminal history background check can be done. Now, it's not going to matter if you've already had a background check for any other reason. In order to complete the notary application process in California, you're going to have a new set of fingerprints submitted. Keep in mind, you have 1 year after the date of your exam to submit your fingerprints. Fingerprints can be taken with a live scan company, or you might find a local law enforcement agency that'll provide that service. At the time you scan your prints, you're going to be given a form that's going to provide evidence that you've completed that live scan. Hold on to that form in case you need the number that's on that form. Now, the person that does your live scan, the live scan operator, is going to automatically send your prints by computer to the Department of Justice. The Department of Justice is going to run a California background criminal check. And then they're going to also forward those digital live scan prints to the FBI for their own criminal investigation, and that'll be done nationwide. It's important to get your live scan completed as soon as possible. Yes, you have up to a year after your exam because remember, your exam results are valid for 1 year. But it really is important to get that live scan completed as soon as possible because the commissioning process will not complete until the background results are in. And that usually takes quite a few weeks. Now, as I said, it'll usually take several weeks for a background check to be completed, and sometimes longer if there are questions or clarifications that need to be made. Once the background results are in, both the DOJ and the FBI are going to forward those results to the California Secretary of State. This is important to know because if your commission is taking significantly longer than you anticipated, one reason might be that the California Secretary of State hasn't yet received the results of the fingerprint investigations from either the DOJ or the FBI. Look, I strongly urge you to complete your fingerprints as close to the date of your examination as possible if getting your commission quickly is important to you. Now, the background check is, of course, looking for a disqualifying crime because the Secretary of State will deny the commission if you've been convicted of a disqualifying crime. Now, if you know in advance that you have a criminal arrest or conviction in your background, you're probably already wondering whether or not that conviction could disqualify your notary application. Well, you can find a list of criminal offenses along with the guidelines that the Secretary of State uses to determine whether or not a particular conviction will be a disqualification by visiting the Secretary of State's website. By the way, this is a very good website to have just for general notary purposes in California, so you really should note this site down sometime during our class. It's www.sos.ca.gov/business/notary. Of course, as we've already discovered, you'll need to complete and submit an application to become a notary public in California to the California Secretary of State, and that's done for each of the 4-year commission terms. You can also download a notary application from the California Secretary of State website that we just gave you, or you can find a link on NotaryClasses.com as well. Now, if you take the live seminar, we'll have the application there for you. When you complete your application, you're going to need to list any arrest or convictions that you might have had. Now, don't omit any convictions, arrests which are pending trial, or even convictions which may have been expunged. Now, the normal run-of-the-mill traffic ticket convictions don't need to be listed, but DUIs and other more serious traffic violations that result in a conviction of a misdemeanor or felony must be disclosed. If you've got something in your background and you're not sure whether to list it or not, the rule of thumb, it's better to be safe and list it in order to avoid a denial on your application based on your omission. Because if you don't disclose convictions or arrests for which a trial is pending, it may be cause for the denial of your commission. I can't overstate the importance of accurately completing your notary application. Don't omit any detail, especially regarding your criminal history. If you don't know or don't remember the exact dates or details, just put as much information as you can remember so that the Secretary of State can reference the information when they compare it to the DOJ and FBI results. Well, now you know about the live scan requirements and you know about the notary application, so let's move our attention to the notary commission itself.